makes people feel a little bit like I don't want to say it, I'd rather put it in the chat. You can always reach out to me afterwards as well if there's anything you want to specifically ask related to your organization that you don't feel like that you want to, something that you're struggling with, or a question that you've got that's really specific to your organization that you don't feel that you want to ask on a recorded call. That's not a problem at all. Tasha's got my contact details, so I'm happy to share them.
I reckon we should get started now, Gail, if that's okay with you.
Fab. Okay. Well, hello everybody. Good morning, as I've already said. Thank you for joining us and joining me on this. I'm hoping it's going to be really helpful, and it's really interesting when when you asked to do a presentation and then you're thinking about the content and then you're wondering about the where everybody's coming from in this kind of conversation. And it might be that I'm talking to some very kind of, people who've got a lot of experience in this, but I'm conscious also I might have people who are really interested but haven't had a lot of experience in it as well. So it's pitched in the middle lane really for that reason. But as I say, if there's more things that you want out of in terms of information at a more higher level, please do reach out. I think the first thing to say is that when I started at MIA 2 years ago now, it was 2 years ago on the 1st of November, Wellbeing was I had like a month where I was involved in the executive team calls, just like as a shadowing kind of keeping in touch type thing. And Wellbeing was the one thing that I thought we've got an opportunity here to do something. Why is my doorbell ringing just at the exact moment? Nobody ever rings my doorbell. Oh, he'll leave it in the porch, it'll be fine. Sorry about that. Um, so so yeah, so wellbeing was the first thing that I thought, actually, is there something in this? Is there something we can do very quickly upon my arrival that'll have a really good impact for our whole organization? And it wasn't that something was broken, it was just there was a number of different things that were mentioned in those exact calls that kind of, when I in my head triangulated them all, I thought, is that giving us a position of an organization that is stretched and stressed, and particular teams, are they okay? How do we know that people are okay working in the organization and they're being supported to be the best they can be? So that's kind of why I've been on this last journey for the last 2 years, because that first couple of months, first month, it raised a question for me. So I'll get onto my slide now. So a little tiny bit about me. It's not about me, this presentation, but just a little bit of context setting. So I'm an accountant, hence the calculator. And I've worked in the NHS now for 25 years. Oh my God, this person wants to just keep ringing my doorbell. Sorry. Um, I'll just go for 2 seconds, because if he rings it again, I'm going to be really annoyed. 1 second.
We should have some hold music when this sort of stuff happens.
Sorry, it was an electrician for my kitchen that I haven't ordered. So he would have kept ringing. So it's done now. So yeah, so I'm an accountant. I always feel like that I am Gail and I'm an accountant. It was a little bit of an apology, but it just kind of, I haven't come from a traditional kind of people-y. I'm not a HR person. I guess I kind of realised that I'm from management accountancy, so I guess there's an element of like the people side of the role when you look at management accountancy, because it's around supporting budget holders and understanding and interpreting data. But I just really enjoyed the people side of my work, and always like building relationships and talking to people and meeting new people and that type of stuff. Um, I then had 2 kids, which, as a human, as a working mum, that makes your career and your working life different for a while, and probably permanently different, because the mum guilt's absolutely awful at times. When you have to go to work and you realise that the kid's not sick and you're sending them to school and you're thinking, I'm going to get the phone call. So that definitely kind of gives me a different appreciation for people who are coming to work as human beings with challenges in their lives or responsibilities in their lives, and that goes into, care and responsibilities in different senses for family members, pet responsibilities for animals, and all sorts of things. So people are human beings and they come to work with all those different things. And then latterly, I kind of in the last, when was it, 2021. So a COVID idea of mine when I was sat, as we all were, with a little bit more time to reflect on where my life was going. I thought, actually, I really, really love the people side of my work, so maybe I could do something peoply. So I completed a master's in occupational psychology, which is really, really, really interesting. And obviously, there was a lot around this type of stuff in that I'm going to talk about now within that master's, because it was about how to support people. Occupational psychology is the science of people in work. So it's really focused on understanding scientifically what the data is telling us about how our people are and how we then make interventions that will help people be the best they can be in work. So it was really, really relevant, and hopefully a little bit of that will come through in this. So I will just move forward now. So why for MIA then? So that was the why for me. The why for MIA is I was really conscious of one of the worst things you can do in an organization is to um um, be on calls like this and say, how, well-being is really important. It's okay to not be okay. All those type of things. It's really important to say them, but also to mean them. And if you say them as a leader or as a manager, that you value those type of things, that you value people speaking up and you value supporting people in work, if you don't then act in that same way, you lose a lot of goodwill, credibility, trust within the organization, and things can break down within the culture very easily if you don't have that level of trust and culture where people feel confident to speak up and they know that they're safe and that they actually want to be part of the future of the organization, and they will walk if you aren't consistent with how, when you say we really value well-being, but then you do some things that show that you don't. So I was really conscious that I wanted to show our teams that we really, really do value them as human beings, as holistic people coming into work, trying the best on a daily basis, and getting the best and helping them to be the best they can be. So, the first big question, and as I was starting this presentation, I was thinking, I wonder what people are coming on the call with a title of Wellbeing Data into Wellbeing Action think wellbeing means in this sense. And I think the biggest thing to kind of if I get across something to people who aren't as au fait with this subject matter, well-being is often seen as just the opposite of sickness. So if your organisation is well, that must mean you've got low levels of sickness. And that is one measure of it. Certainly, that is one measure of well-being. But the measure of well-being and the domains of well-being are so much broader than that. And I've just put on here a number of different. So I'm just going to move my there we go. Measures of well-being are really varied, so there's no one consistent measure of well-being nationally. The ONS has got one, NHS England's got one, and there's a load internationally. If you Google measures of, well-being or domains of well-being, you'll get loads of ideas, which is great in one sense, but it's definitely not just about health or illness of employees. And the one that I'm going to kind of anchor this to is the CIPD, so the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, which is obviously linked to my master's, is the seven domains of well-being. I was going to say how many of them can we name, but given I can't see the chat, maybe it's just a reflective moment at this point, but I'm going to go into those seven domains of well-being now. And how then I've used data relating to each of those seven domains to um, to make changes and to identify where effort is needed or where interventions are needed um, or just to understand more about our organisation and to kind of what that information's telling us. So I'll go on to the first one then, because so these are the seven. So health is there. So I've talked about, well-being is about health, but that's only one of the seven. There are so many other aspects to well-being in work. And these are the seven. So I'm going to go into each one of these now individually and expand them a little bit in terms of what does good work mean and what do each of them mean. And then I'll talk through some of the data that we've had internally, and and then at the end I'll talk about the impact that it's had over the last 2 years and the measurable impact that we can see in the organisation. So health. So physical health. So it is really important, obviously, that our staff are physically well. It matters even more if some of our staff have protected characteristics around their disability. So if they do have physical disabilities and they're in work and we're supporting them to maintain those physical disabilities in work, that's really important. Obviously, some of these aren't relevant to the NHS because this is the CIPD, so it's universal to employers in the UK. So obviously health insurance isn't, but things like wellbeing benefits and occupational health support and those type of things and health promotion are very relevant still to the NHS. Physical safety. So again, making sure that our staff are safe if they're working both on our sites as well as if they're working in client sites. If so, for MIAA, we've got an office base, but then our auditors go out onto client sites. So it's important that staff feel safe in both, as well as to some extent at home. You know, the DSE, the display screen equipment, things that we all need to do really to make sure that we're staying safe when we're working at home in terms of health, so that we're not causing ourselves any musculoskeletal issues or anything through working suboptimally at home. Mental health, obviously, absolutely key, and has increased, I would say, in terms of internationally and nationally since COVID. Stress risk assessments, conflict resolution training managers, occupational health, again, really key in supporting staff with mental health conditions, and I think encouraging staff to destigmatize mental health conversations within the workplace. And those are some of the things that I'll go into in a minute. So some of the things the data that we got around health, is that we did look quite a lot around sickness rates and sickness reasons, and we looked at those actions to take actions where it specifically said work-related stress was being cited as a reason for absence. Um, we have unfortunately had a really a, a, small handful of people with really significant physical illnesses, so cancers, long-term cancers, and heart conditions, which has been really, obviously there's not very much we can do about that. Those people are off on long-term sick, and that's really what we're doing is supporting them, virtually, and keeping in touch with them and trying to support them as best we can. But obviously they're under a different pathway for care. But where the reasons are influenceable by the organisation, I think that's where we can take action, and that's one of the reasons. When we started reviewing this in 2022, 2023, when I started, um, when we started looking at reasons where stress was cited more generally, that was one of the reasons why we did the mental health mind index survey, which is a mental health charity. So we did a little bit of it basically said that staff felt stressed, but it didn't say work or non-work. So then we just basically went and did a mental health survey just around how staff were feeling to get a little bit more information. It transpired that most of the stress was just related to the way that work life is and there were other commitments outside of work, and so some of it is not it's not possible for us to support people in terms of support. They've got a home stress around financial stress, or they've got home stress around a family member. But there are still a few things you can do, around reasonable adjustments. So supporting them to feel like that if they need to take the time off, carers absence, those type of things. So even when it's home related stress, there are some things that under your policies you will be able to do. And the important thing for me is we also know some staff who are well in work at the moment, but also have a risk of becoming unwell because they do have mental health conditions. And so for us, it's about like really early identification of them having a bit of a dip in their mood, or not coming on calls with the camera on and those type of things, and really having conversation, their manager having a conversation with them early about whether they feel like they're at risk of deteriorating in terms of their mental health and what can they do about it, and enabling those individuals to feel safe about talking about those things, which is really, really important because it can be really scary if you are, if you do have a mental health condition and you're worried about deteriorating mental health. But the worst thing is worrying about what if I can't work and those type of things. That's going to add to the stress. So at least we help to try and take that away by saying we're here for you, we're supporting you. Is there anything we can do? What can you do for yourself? So that's really, really positive. Return to work after sickness absence. So even after one day of sick, returning to work check forms that we do and they go on ESR. Really, really, really important. And then occupational health referrals in, I would say, most cases will do an occupation unless it's like a 1 day gastro issue or a COVID. We probably wouldn't refer for COVID. But if it's anything else, we'd certainly would request whether the individual felt that an occupational referral was going to be useful. And 100% of our staff after 1 day off will have a return to work check for that reason, because it prompts the manager, regardless of whether the manager is kind of thinking in that space, it prompts the manager to ask the question of the individual. And it should be, it's a combination of being led by the organisation. So there are some we'll always refer to occupational health, and there are some where we'll say to the individual as the the employee, do you think occupational health might be able to help you with anything? Is there anything that we can help you with from that clinical side? So it really again puts people back in control of their own wellness in work, which is really empowering. And then I'm going to talk about the National Staff Survey quite a lot and unapologetically, I guess, because I have spent a lot of time in MIAA talking about the National Staff Survey and sharing the importance of completion with our staff, our teams, individuals. Um, and it's not too late if you are doing the National Staff Survey to encourage this completion. The data that you get from it is incredibly rich, and I'll show you some screenshots from the questions from it. If you've already done it, you'll know the richness because you'll have already done it yourself. It's a 15-minute thing to do. I know that's really difficult. I try and carve it into an existing meeting, so I'm not asking people to do another 15 minutes on something else at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day. So if I've got a corporate team meeting, I'll say, let's just have 45 minutes today and let's do 15 minutes on the start. I'll give you the 15 minutes back so you can do the staff survey on within the meeting time. But it will give you departmental and team level data if you get more than 11 responses, I think, by team. So it's completely anonymous otherwise, and it's completely anonymous by team, but you will get some team level data, which again will give you an indication about whether team stress risk assessments might be useful. I, particularly in corporate, in about a year ago, had a period of change in corporate where I had somebody on maternity leave, somebody off on long-term sickness through um, something else. And so there was a lot of cross cover, and I knew there was a lot of volume of work coming into corporate. And we did a team stress risk assessment just like proactively to say, because I wanted them to feel like they knew what I was taking accountability and ownership for and what they should do. So it said things like, well, the individuals should flag up if they're struggling. Individuals, particular people in the team should say if they've got too much on rather than just assume that they just need to carry on doing and doing and doing and doing and doing until they break, because that's not what this is about. It's a team stress risk assessment is around how do we function as effectively as possible in a team. And it was really well received by the team. And we came back to it a couple of weeks later and said, did we manage to get over this bump in activity and the gaps in the team without too much harm being done to the individuals? And I think we did, which was really positive. And then managers training as standard. So I know this talks around like training line managers to have difficult conversations and those type of things. We don't wait for data on that. We have like a managers group that runs quarterly, and we basically schedule something in every quarter that's on something managerial. Managers' jobs are the hardest jobs in the world. I think universally, I think if you look at evidence around that, investors in people, one of the people who accredit people would say that it's the hardest job, and most managers aren't trained to be managers. They are very, very good at what they do operationally, transactionally, on the day job. Functionally, they are experts. they progress because they're very, very good at what they do, but nobody progresses their managerial skills at the same pace as their actual functional and professional skills. And so then you end up in a position where you're managing one complex individual or a team of individuals with very different issues. That is really challenging. So we try and not wait for our managers to fail on that, and we just basically almost sort of consistently apply this managers training, which is open to everybody. So every quarter we'll do something. So, and we try and do it within the business cycle. So the first quarter, I think, was about how to do a good appraisal as a manager, what type of things you should, what questions you should be asking, how you should prepare for it, those type of things. One was about having difficult conversations and progressing people through performance management pathways in the within the policy that exists for the organisation. One was, I think, on equality and diversity. And so you get the pic. We're able to sort of be flexible with the agenda, but we're covering off some of those really big things that if your individual comes to your manager with a health issue or a wellbeing issue, that they feel that it's received in the way that we would like every person to be managed, recognizing that managing is difficult. I realise I'm gonna have to speed up a little bit because it's now 24. So it's talked about the detail that's in there. So you can see that some of the things I've just mentioned are going to be asked in the health and wellbeing in the National Staff Survey. So once you've got that information, if you don't know what your people are feeling, you will know once you get the staff survey results. I put in there June, but I did just look yesterday. I think I got mine in April 2025, 2024. So it could be a little earlier. So if you've never reviewed your staff survey data before, it might be really good to do it this year. If you're not getting a finance set because the organisation has to set you up as like a finance bundle to, in terms of you're not corporate, you're a subset of corporate. Um, I would say still do it, just review the corporate results, but then maybe get a cross section of people to talk about whether it actually whether it reflects the finances department. If you don't do it and you don't get any departmental data, these questions have been refined, honed, and like developed in a really sophisticated way from a analysis perspective and a research perspective. They are what's classed as really high quality, not leading questions, and there's a lot of evidence base around that. If you ask a question in a particular way, you risk getting a misleading result. So I would say if you don't use the staff survey or you don't know what your staff survey results or you don't want to, which is absolutely fine. Try and look at what the questions are and how they're asked in the staff survey, because I think even if you wanted to do a small survey of your own, try and follow the model that exists in the staff survey, because I think again it's evidence based in the way it's being developed, and you will get you'll get more consistent results that aren't leading in terms of the response that you're expecting. So you'll get more open and fair responses. So good work. What does that mean? What does that mean? Having a really open and inclusive culture, having ergonomically designed working hours, so obviously having open plan offices, those type of things, having a kitchen area where people can kind of meet in a breakout area or some space to talk. Effective people management, so we go into that again. Work demand, so having job satisfaction, being able to control your job role, job quality and work-life balance. Autonomy, so whether you feel you can speak up and how much you feel you're in control of your job or whether you feel you're done to. Change management, pay and reward, which is a difficult one for the NHS, but still possible. So some of the stuff that we've done in this area are around, we have a departmental approach to flexible working. It's mentioned, as many do, at recruitment, but then because of the what I said at the beginning, as in walking the walk. It's talked on recruitment. It's absolutely followed through in day one consistently as part of the induction that my team do with every member of staff, a corporate induction, and then there's a local induction within the managerial structure. So in the corporate induction, it's followed through again in terms of the rights to a flexible working arrangements and any reasonable adjustments. And we monitor that quite heavily in exec. So we look at how many people are on compressed hours, so a 9 day fortnight or a 5 days in 5 days in 4.5, 5 days in 4, which is the most popular day to have a compressed working arrangement where you have a non-working day. We review that all the time, so we know that We know where our staff are. We also know how we're supporting staff. We know why, because some of them are saying the reason for flexible working is care and responsibilities. So that gives us another kind of way to support our staff. And then we also know kind of in terms of um, yeah, in terms of the breadth of the offer and the different types of flexible working. So obviously part-time working, compressed hours, term time hours, all sorts of different things. But we do review that regularly. And I think we'll come to a point where we will need to review it and decide. We've already decided that Mondays and Fridays really tend to be the day that people want the non-working day if they have a compressed week, obviously, so they can have a long weekend. We're saying at the moment we're probably in some teams that means that nobody's or very few people are in on a Friday, and from an organisational perspective, we need to maybe think about that. But we won't just say if you ask now, you won't be able to have a Friday. We'll go out to everybody in that team and say we really need to spread the non-working day out across everybody. Are there any, how can we kind of work this up? Because they want it to work as well. We don't do that top down, like tell people what to do and then expect them to do it. So national staff survey again, and I'll come to that, and managers training standard again. Don't expect that some of these will happen just because they're good things. They are great things, and many great managers will do them anyway. But let's not assume that managers, because if managers have been in the roles for a long time, they won't want to. They'll feel difficult to raise that they're struggling at management because that feels like a really people would say, well, how have you managed to do it for the last 10 years if you're really struggling, Um, so we do that standard. I would say if you're interested in the work demands job design, there's a lot of research around job crafting. So that's something that you might want to look into. And that basically allows people to think about what are the things they hate about their job and what are the things they love most about their job and how can they craft more of the good things into the job and not do less of the things they don't like, but how do they manage the impact of the things that they don't like doing versus the things they do? That's fascinating. That's part of a master's. I won't go on to that. Could have a whole section on that. So talked about National Staff Survey again. So many really good, valid questions that if you don't do it, maybe pick some if you're thinking about you're not sure what people are feeling about all these aligned to well-being. They say it's my job. You wouldn't necessarily align it to well-being, but they really, really do align to well-being very, very closely because they reflect to all those things that I've just mentioned. So you can see the alignment. Values, principles. So this is obviously leadership, ethical standards, dignity in work, opportunities for volunteering and supporting and from a corporate social responsibility, social value type things, and inclusion and diversity. Um, this kind of connects into the next theme, so I'm going to kind of group these together for the purpose of the presentation, which is probably good for time. So collective and social is around dialogue and involvement and communication, positive relationships, dignity and respect. And so again, National Staff Survey will come on to but we've really, really, really promoted our values awards quarterly, and the values awards allowed us to get some context and information around how people are in work from their managers or from anybody. Anybody's allowed to nominate anybody for a value award. So we've got respect, continuous respect, innovation and excellence, and I've forgotten the third one. Anyway, but respect is in there as one of our values. Um, I think the really key thing in this one is around these type of questions that are in the social that are in the National Staff Survey around feeling valued, feeling that people are polite, feeling the extent to which there's some you probably might have heard of just learning culture and you might have heard of restorative practice as concepts. And they are all around, and there's some evidence around, and I might, if it's of interest, let me know because I can send you the links to it, around the impact if a person witnesses microaggressions or disrespect to a colleague. So it's not to them. So somebody isn't rude to them, but somebody talks disrespectfully to a colleague in a workplace office. And the impact on the individual witnessing that, the bystander, that's the word I wanted, the bystander, is they're like more likely to make more errors. They're more likely to make more computational errors. Now, if we're in a space where We work in we work on computers, we work with data, large sources of data, we work with accuracy at the core of our work. The support and respect and inclusion in the organization isn't just a nice to do, is it? It's absolutely essential because if we don't support respect and inclusion, we risk having less accurate data, having people who feel very fearful of making a mistake because they've seen the impact of somebody being disrespectful when something happened. And there is really good evidence around that, that if you're looking to influence leaders in your organization around why really focusing on respect and inclusion matters. It's not soft at all. It really frustrates me when people talk about, respect and good communication being like soft skills. They are the hardest things to kind of do consistently, but they're so vital to everything that we do. So yeah, if you're interested in that bystander analysis, I think it's called bystander analysis theory or something like that. You can definitely Google it, but I can find you more information if that's useful. Um, Personal growth, so that relates to mentoring, coaching, skills and succession, positive relationships and financial well-being and resilience, lifelong learning, the things you'd expect to come into personal growth, really. Um, so obviously you'd expect us to look at compliance on appraisals and personal development plans, and you'd expect as a level three organisation they'd be 100%, and they are. But the interesting thing is this is all covered within the staff survey, and the staff survey gives you that extra level of data which says how did the individual feel their appraisal benefited them and helped them to progress and helped them to feel like they've got, that they got something out of the appraisal, the quality appraisal, I think it's called. Um, so that's right. So it's good to maybe compare data sources on that one because you can look at one, can't you? And one statistics, lies, and damn statistic. You can look at one and that gives you a position. But if you look at a couple and you try and triangulate them, you can get a much richer picture and actually one that maybe just gives you why might that be the case? So that's really interesting to try and do where you've got the opportunity to compare data within this particular field, and that's what we would do with we know we've got 100% compliance, but what the quality of that compliance is that variable? And if that's variable, do we know which teams it's variable in? And is it then a training issue? What are the issues? And then to asking our teams to feed back on that, either confidentially or in person. Succession talent management obviously really key, and I've put the links on at the end to the One HS Finance talent management strategy, which has been launched, in the last year. I think that's really, really exciting to see that as a consistency of offer across the national finance function. So that's in. I've got loads of links at the end of this, by the way, which I won't go into, but can be shared with the slides. A national staff survey again, because you wouldn't expect that, didn't? So there you go. These are the questions around that, and this is what I mean around it helped me improve how I do my job. It helped me agree clear objectives. It let me feel my work was valued. So I'd expect everybody from MIA's clicking yes on that 23A. But I'd hope as well that most of them are clicking yes, definitely on that. And then if people are saying yes to some extent or no, I'd be looking at kind of where they work, and some of it might be as a result of the of a need to look at those job roles. Are they attractive? Is there something about have they got gaps in the team? There might be many reasons why people might say, help me improve how I do my job, because some people might be in a state in the career where they're kind of just they're doing consistency rather than continuous improvement. But one of our values is in innovation and excellence, so helping people to improve how they do their job is absolutely key. And you can see some of the other questions as well in there, which are really key. I would say in this one, nationally, this one is, you'll see later, nationally, this one is the one where people do dip. So if you do have a lower score on this in the staff survey results, it is a national dip. People seem to report less favourably on this one, but it's definitely somewhere to go. And that's why the national talent management strategy for One HS Finance was so important, because of the dip in that. So lifestyle, you'd expect this covers those type of things. So physical activity, opportunities for physical activity, opportunities for healthy eating. We don't obviously have measurable data on in sense of like how many people are taking up the offers of what we do. But what we do have is when we post a lot of offers in our staff hub. So this is an extract of it, and you can see in here we've got Joe Wicks's winter warmer recipes in October the 28th, and it had 41 views. And then this is one around the charity football match as well, which has got 60 views. So we are able to track a little bit in terms of what are the most clicked items. It's a little bit less sophisticated, but people will only take what they want to take, won't they? You can put lots of information out there and people will, if people are interested, they will, and if people aren't, they won't, but they know where to go if they need it. And I think that's important that we try and do a variety of try and put a variety of things on the staff hub that are both functional. So that's like about the Finance Innovation Forum. That's obviously a health and wellbeing thing around like lifestyles, and that's the type of thing we try and do it quite broadly, really. And then we try and track how interesting it is for people, which is really good to inform whether we do more of it and what people like. Do they like the recipes or do they like the physical exercise or what do we need to do? And we've got loads of like, in your open plan areas, putting loads of, recipe books or putting those type of things out, maybe arranging walks at lunchtime, although it's very cold at the moment to arrange a walk, but it's probably quite nice. Financial, really challenging. Obviously, the CIPD is, again, as I said earlier, just for the benefit of people who joined since, that a CIPD is a national employer kind of HR body, and some of these aren't as easy for the NHS to resolve. But there are some things we've done in this space. So we've done our pay multiples, our gender and ethnicity pay gap from MIAA. We only have 104 staff. We don't have to mandate, it's not mandated that we do it, of course, because we're less than 250 staff. Luft, our employer, do it. They publish it annually within their report, and all your organisations will publish it annually in report. But we do it for MIA so that we know what our gender and ethnicity pay gap is. It just helps us understand kind of anything we can do, and obviously connects very highly into our EDI agenda. And then knowing around the age profile of our teams from the skills development census allows us then to maybe target some of the messages related to retirement planning and then encourage and signpost skip those courses. Some of them are offered internally via our employer, Liverpool Hospitals, and some of them are via things like Skills Development Network. So we try and just make sure, but we'll just put them on the hub for everybody, but we will, in some instances where people are kind of approaching retirement age, make sure that they've kind of had a conversation with the manager around accessing them if they want to. Again, you can't, the important thing is you're not forcing anybody to do anything, but you're making available all the information should they wish to do it. Um, so this is just, I just thought of putting out of interest, this is what our gender ethnicity pay gap looks like. So women occupy 61% of the highest paid jobs and 69% of the lowest paid jobs, but we make up 59% of the MA workforce. So our highest paid jobs is probably about right for our workforce, but the upper middle pay quartile is female is 45% when women make up 59%. So there is something around how we're supporting women in the lower middle pay quartile to progress through talent management, personal development, and appraisal into the upper middle pay quartiles. And obviously, our recruitment is follows equality and diversity. So we need to, but we need to do both. We need to look at, continuing with equality and diversity in recruitment, but also looking at female progression through from lower pay quartile to upper middle pay quartile over a period of time. I think that is very much kind of, obviously everybody working in the same job is paid the same grade. So this doesn't say that women are being paid less. Let's not misunderstand the data. It just says there are less women in that pay quartile in those bands. Now, let me caveat that by we are 100 staff. So the numbers that are in each of those pay bands are much smaller, which is why it's not mandated for small bodies because it can give you some misleading data. So I would caveat whatever you do. And I've got a slide set that I use to kind of to 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 talk about the reasons why we've done it because it's the right reason, but it is potentially misleading due to small numbers in certain circumstances. So, for instance, our ethnicity pay gap numbers are probably a little bit unrepresentative because of the small numbers of staff at particular grades in that. But it still doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's the right reason to do it because I think you just could identify something that you need to think about in terms of talent management. So finally, 9:42, not too bad. In case people do want to ask questions, what have we seen? What has been the impact of me looking at the data in each of those areas? The single biggest increase has been our increase in staff engagement. If you look at the right-hand side, there's good health and wellbeing can be a core enabler of employee engagement and organisational performance. The obviously you can see MIAA scores there and the national scores, and out of those, there is very most of them we are, and even when we're not 10%, we're sort of 8%, and some of them are massively higher. And staff engagement is absolutely equal to the national. The other thing that really makes a difference for me, and I'm incredibly proud of, is when I first came into post, we didn't get staff survey results. When I asked what our percentage rate was of completion, as in members of staff completing it, it was around the 21% of staff completed it because it wasn't promoted and people didn't understand the people didn't understand why their voice mattered and what we could do about it if they told us. And then last year we were 51% and the national average was 48. And then this year, because it hasn't closed yet, I found out this morning we're 60. So we've gone from 23 to 60% in 2 years of engagement with our staff. So 60% of around 60 of our 100 people have told us what they feel about working in MIA across all of those different things. And the important thing is they've done that because they now value the opportunity to tell us how they feel because they know we make changes that make a difference to them. So it becomes a I would say vicious circle, but that sounds negative. A positive circle. It becomes a really good feedback loop for our staff because they can really give us they know they give us valuable information anonymously that we will then do meaningful change that supports them. Our reduction in sickness is small but important. You know, any sickness reduction is important. I have mentioned that we have had in both years a number of staff who've unfortunately got very serious conditions that mean they're still off sick on long-term sick, but which is why the number is a little bit higher than we'd like, but and with a small number of staff in to go at the percentages, obviously. Um, but but we have had a reduction. And then we just got an increase in the number and representation of staff from across MIA in employee resource groups. And they are groups where people are brought together as a diverse group of staff representing all of MIA's business areas. So technology risk audit, core assurance, counter fraud, corporate team. You know, there's probably healthcare quality. There's probably about eight sort of definable teams in MIA across the 100 staff. And they're all represented in these small networks, health and wellbeing network, the EEDI network, the social value network. And again, it's another opportunity for them to give their voice to kind of how it feels. And they are the voice then of their team into those groups. So if their teams in the health and wellbeing group, if they're so we don't just rely on the 1 year staff engagement stuff, which comes, you know, in April, May every year. During the year, if something came up from that individual's team, they would say, do you know what, the team are really saying that they really want to do X, Y, and Z, or this is really important, or can we share some information on can we support staff who are maybe fasting as part of as part of their religion? Can we provide some information on the staff hub to support managers for staff who are fasting to understand how to support those staff during periods of fasting? And so it's stuff like that that they contribute then to. So it really is kind of an ongoing piece of work, and it will never stop, and I will never stop until I get 100% on staff survey. But I'm nearly there at 60, a lot better than we were 2 years ago. So I've put loads of different resources and links of things that I've mentioned throughout. I've particularly, and loads of them are actually really practical things that you could do without, obviously the staff survey is amazing, but if you can't do any of them, there are some things in here that you could do that are a lot shorter that you could just do a little temperature check in your organisation. We do use the National Quarterly Pulse Survey, by the way, as well, which is the interim thing. It's just a lot smaller. There's only about 10 or 12 questions on it, but there is one on wellbeing. And so we do make sure that we're kind of not deteriorating on that indicator through there. That evolved workplace wellbeing that's got an opportunity to put in it's like a financial, like an investment appraisal thing. So you can put in, if you did this, what return on investment would you get from this investment in wellbeing? So if you're looking for, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have to convince people that this is a really good financial thing to do, organisation, it's going to like make a difference. That's a really good evolved workplace wellbeing is a really good toolkit to do that. And there's lots of, and the inclusive talent management is obviously one at Just Finance. And I'll stop talking now and ask if anybody has any questions for me. I won't stop. Oh, shall I stop sharing my screen? Maybe because I can't see people's faces if they talk to me. Then 1 second. Stop sharing. Yeah, you've got a question.
We've got Laura.
Hi, first of all, thank you very much. That was really interesting to see and hear it all. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share the presentation
Yeah,
with us.
100%. Yeah,
Amazing, thank you. So
absolutely.
we can take
And
that into some of our meetings 'cause really good presentation.
yeah, and if there's anything, as I say, I've touched upon a number of different things, and if there's something you think actually could you just have like more of the
Mm,
background to that, templates from that type of stuff, I'm more than happy to share. Obviously, anything I can share. Well, if I need to take out MIAA data because of any reason, I will, but I can share with you the process and those type of things. So
amazing, thank you so
yeah,
much.
no worries. Thanks, Laura. Gazala?
Gazala.
Mm. Hi, Gail. Thanks for
Hi.
your session. That was really useful. My question is around the staff survey, and you mentioned about, encouraging people to complete that. I just wanted to ask, how do you, I mean, is there anything that you do in your, as part of finance to encourage people to complete the survey? And is there any way of monitoring how many people
Yeah,
from finance have completed? So, if you if they haven't, then we can sort of approach it or send
yeah,
more messages out.
yeah, definitely. Good question. Um, Yeah, so I would say it's a slow burn, and the best thing you can do is so that's been my progress has been since in the last 2 years, really. So 20% to 51 to over 60. So that's kind of but it's only done that because of the steps I've taken. So one thing is, firstly, even though you've got really low numbers, try and socialize some of the information and say, wouldn't it be good if we had, look at all the questions we've got here, wouldn't it be great? We don't need to do a separate survey. We don't need to do anything different. We don't need to create another process. We don't need to, we don't need to do anything different. We could just engage with this. And wouldn't it be good if we had information on this? And that was where I started with it and trying to explain to people the benefits of doing it. Then obviously I've got, if you can find a particular team that's big enough where you can get a reasonable sample size. So it's really difficult with 107. You do really, a realistic sample size for a department should be about 100 before it's a statistically significant sample in order to rely on the data. And we're never going to get 100% really, honestly, are we? Do you know we're not? I say jokingly we will, but I don't think we'll get there. Um, so so it's about just getting as many as you can, really. But and what I would do is maybe target some of the teams where you feel like they're really kind of more engaged with the being in, and maybe go into health and wellbeing. So I went into health and wellbeing group, EDI group, and social value group because those people are already coming to those agendas passionate about those agendas. They're coming passionate about wellbeing. They're coming passionate about EDI and social value. And when you share with them, this is the data we could get if we could get some completion on it. They're like, oh, that'd be great, wouldn't it, to know what our staff feel about X, Y, and Z? And they're like, oh, why aren't we? And then that they start to kind of be your spokespeople. So it's not just you, because I find I can only do so much, and by the time I've said complete it a couple of times, people are going, Gail's asking me to do something again, and I'm fed up. So you don't want it just to be you. You do want to try and to start of influence and raise the potential of it with a sort of willing group of first kind of a receptive group of first volunteers. It will depend on whether your finance team is set up as like, so when you go on, if you go on as yourself, you go onto the staff survey, click the link, it'll ask you to pick. If it asks you to pick a finance department or a corporate, it'll say corporate. So for me, it was, hosted services in Liverpool hospitals, and then it was MIA, and then after MIA, it was corporate. So depending on how your OD, your organisational development or organisational effectiveness team have set that up, will determine whether you can get a departmental lens on the staff survey. So I would say see what that gives you. If it gives you a finance department drop down, you should absolutely be able to get that, and it would be through your organizational development team who can look at the back data and tell you. So last year I just raised a lot of profile, like with individuals and teams, kind of one-to-one. This year I've gone a little bit more. I've stoked the fires of the natural competitiveness of people this year. So I've basically on last week, 2 weeks ago's team meeting, because we were 4 weeks in then, I put up a little graph that showed by by team what the percentage rates were and who the most responses were by team. And it just gets people a little bit competitive then. And I was like, oh, corporate are doing the best. Sorry, guys. But you're not that far off and you're not that far off. And now, we were below, we were 51% a couple of weeks ago. We were just about where we were last year, and we've gone up in 2 weeks by 9%. So that people respond differently to the ask. Some people will want to contribute because they know it's the right thing to do. Some people will only want to do it once they know the friend's done it. Let's get safety in numbers. And some people will want to do it because they're really competitive and they want their department and their business unit to get the most. So it's about trying to really be varied with how you hook people into it and don't just try but I do try and create space in as many meetings as I can. The first year when I went from 20 odd to 51%, we did have a 45-minute team brief instead of an hour. And at the end of we stopped the team brief, which is everybody in MIAA, at 45 minutes, and we said, here is your 15 minutes to do the staff survey. Because most of the time, that is the reason why people say, I just haven't got time to do it. I just haven't got the 15 minutes. So we were like, we're giving you the 15 minutes. There's no excuse now. Okay, we're just going to put this thingy on. We put a little, timer off YouTube on the screen with some really calm music. So they were really zen when they completed it, and they gave us like a really, balanced response. And that worked really well. That got us to there. Now we're going a little bit faster on the push and but then we've started sharing it so much in the EDI, so much in the health and well-being. We've shared it that they know now the reason why we're being asked to do it, and they value that opportunity. So I think it's a growing thing, but there's definitely things.
Thank you very much for that.
Sharon from the Christie, who's on the call, they won the award for the most staff survey results in the Christie as a team, didn't you, last year, Sharon? You do amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we have. Same as what you've just said then. We just promote it constantly. I think we're at 60% at the minute. Last year we got 82%, so we wanted to try and beat that
82%
score.
is insane. Yeah. It's absolutely insane. It's amazing. Yeah, and as I say, the richness of the data and the use of the data across so many different things. If you're doing towards excellence, it's brilliant for towards excellence. It's brilliant for so many different things, and it's just like, why wouldn't you? Because you've got that ability then within the One NHS Finance community to also benchmark yourself across other organisations through the One NHS Finance work that happens that I'm involved in about the staff survey. So you will, when you get a bigger response rate, be able to say, well, how do we compare to the Christie? How do we compare to, Blackpool? How do we compare to Airedale? And then if we're worse than them or better than them, what are they doing? How are they managing to get that score? And then it just like fosters that continuous improvement and excellence in what we're all doing, really. Thanks, everybody. I recognise it's 9:57, which has like gone so fast. I feel like I've just talked at you, but hopefully there's just some little nuggets in there. As I say, if there's anything specific you do want to chat about separately, please just reach out to me through Tash. And I hope you have a brilliant and warm rest of the day. If there's no other questions, I'm happy to hang around for the next couple of minutes. I recognise that you'll probably end up rushing to at 10 o'clock. So make sure you get a drink in the spirit of well-being. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sue.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.